Welcome to Health and Wellness with Lynette. And this is really based on my own personal wellness journey. And I'm so excited to get to bring to you, well, one of my very favorite people, Dr. Jason Kolber, although I really call him Dr. J. He is a chiropractor extraordinaire, and he's also chiropractor to the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Coyotes, and the ASU Athletics, where he's really seen many of his athletes really struggling with tough travel schedules and all the pressures of day to day, their profession, and to help them wind down and get some sleep. Personally, sleep has been a struggle for me. So, for really many years. And I know a lot of people out there have that same struggle too. Dr. J has helped me so much in this area, and that's really why I asked him here today to be the very first guest on the Health and Wellness with Lynette. Dr. J, thank you so much for coming here today.
Well, I'm so grateful. And first of all, I just want to acknowledge you, the amount of outreach and loving service you do to put good out into the world. And I'm really honored. So thank you so much. And we could have a mutual, a virtual hug. You are one of my favorite people.
Oh,
I
thank you.
love your passion for life. And I really think you are a triple L, actually a quadruple L, Lynette lifelong learner. You could be L to the fourth.
It's
And
true.
I love your passion for just continually unfolding. And thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I have to start with this first question is, can you tell everybody why you do what you do?
Sure, it would be my pleasure. It'll take about a minute to give a little background. Is that okay?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
All right. So sometimes when I do public speaking, I sort of tell a little bit of a favorite joke that I originally had to heal the emotional scarring of seeing my father in a Speedo bathing suit most of my life. And I joke about that, but I'm really grateful too, because what I mean by that is I grew up around my dad, who's a holistic chiropractor and also an all natural bodybuilder. And I was around people who didn't want to really give into aging, who didn't want to give into this story that, well, now I'm having to slow down now. So, from very early on, the seed was planted in my life and in my heart and mind about what does it look like to live a life that's fully expressed. And, when health is absent, the famous quote, wisdom cannot reveal itself.
Mhm.
And I know you cherish that same concept. So I guess, first of all, I think the best way to answer that is I'm grateful. I've had a really different background. I don't really, when a lot of my friends were goofing around on spring break, partaking in social activities, my dad would pay for me to fly and visit cutting edge doctors, because at a young age, I showed interest in really wanting to be around people who were interested in proactive living, not waiting for the muffler to fall off, but I wanted to be around people who wanted to absolutely help people express their potential. So I guess, to make a long story short, I love helping people feel like there's possibility. Now more than ever in the world we're living in, sometimes everybody feels the sky is falling, and I want to help
Yeah.
people to feel resilient and help them feel like they can still access possibility.
Yeah. Well, you do that through your coaching, which I've gotten to utilize many times. It's been fantastic. And, also through sleep. But, I can tell you that when I was raised, I was not raised to think that sleep was really all that important. In my family, it was all about work. You work, you work, you work. And I'm definitely a workhorse. But can you share with everybody why sleep is so important?
You got it. I had a life-changing experience about 8 years ago. So I'm really grateful. Players dip into their own pocket and pay for me to fly around the country. I specialize in balancing the body. So I created my own system for amplifying the health of the nervous system. I help athletes as well as people in the general public both dissipate stress as well as increase their readiness, increase their ability to fire and really function at their greatest level. So I flew across the country for an elite player in the golf industry. Of course, I won't say this person's name. And I pride myself on being punctual. So I flew across the country, to the East Coast, and I was supposed to be in this gentleman's beautiful condo at 11 a.m. 10:54 a.m. I walk into his condo, and we'll just call this person John. John is scrambling all over the place, looking for his phone, his keys. He's running all around, and I was like, okay, what am I missing? What's happening here, John? He was so dependent upon Ambien. He slept through his wife having appendicitis. The paramedics took his wife to the hospital in the middle of the night. The only thing on record my client said to the paramedics is, can you please turn the blank light off? And went back to sleep. He wakes up 10:49, 5 minutes before I get there, 150 something odd missed calls and texts. You possibly are the worst husband on earth. Your wife's in the hospital. And on top of it, he was so out of it, his mother-in-law took the kids to the hotel, had beat him waking up, flew into town, takes the kids to the hotel. My client wakes up, no kids, no wife, and sadly admitted to me about how dependent he was on harsh sleep chemicals.
Wow.
It blew my mind. You know, I was in this happy microcosm because I thought since he was more holistic oriented, he was paying for my time and expertise. But sometimes you don't know what happens in somebody's home late at night. And maybe he was embarrassed to tell me or embarrassed how dependent he was on it. And it changed my life. And a week later, I hired a private investigator, and I swear on my daughter's head on this. And I knew there was a gentleman that did profound consulting for the NBA. The NBA has one of the worst travel schedules in all sports because unlike baseball, where when I'm with the Diamondbacks, we could have a team in town or we can be in a town for 3 or 4 days. NBA changes towns every day. So their sleep schedule terrible. There was an amazing formulator named Michael who had done some work for the NBA, but I knew he had been semi-retired. He did very well. I hired a private investigator to track down his cell phone number. I call him on a Saturday, and I told him this profound experience that I had with this athlete. And I said, what if we can actually create a natural strategy that's non-addictive, non-habit forming, that really helps the nervous system and helps people access greater levels of sleep? And he said, where do you live? And I said, Arizona. He said, that's very interesting. I said, okay, why is that interesting? He said, I forgot my sister's birthday. And she's a professor at the osteopathic school there. She's very busy. She doesn't ever ask for much. I didn't call her. I didn't text her. I didn't send her a card. I didn't send her flowers. He said, I'll tell you what, pay for my flight. I'm going to surprise my sister, show up to her door, and just apologize and tell her I love her, and I'll give you 15 minutes of my time. And I'm laughing to myself. I was like, I got to pay for this guy's first-class flight for 15 minutes? I was like, all right, I'm going for it. And that started the journey of meeting with amazing mentors. And I really saw more than ever. It wasn't just peak athletes. It was peak performers. It was beautiful moms that stayed home to moms that are juggling 2 careers. Everybody under the sun, I started realizing more and more how unrested people felt. Yes. And how overwhelmed, and then the anxiety that comes from not being well rested, laying awake at night, knowing that people still have to perform the next day.
That's, that's an amazing story. And forgive my naivete on this next question, but is Ambien, is that an over-the-counter sleep aid?
No, Ambien is an intense prescription medication. It's the famous drug that Tiger Woods had taken when the famous story all blew up of his personal life, and they found him asleep in the middle of the street because he was so under the influence of sleep medication.
Oh, wow.
And it's now documented to be a precursor to early onset dementia and even Alzheimer's if it's stored in the fatty tissue. There are concerns in general that oftentimes people end up needing stronger and stronger dosages because their body habituates. And it could be extremely challenging to help kidney, liver function too.
That's not a good thing. It's much better to do things in the natural way, in ways that actually support your body.
You got
it. So what are the health benefits of getting some good sleep?
Okay, wonderful. I'm glad you asked. So, okay, first of all, of course, there's the obvious anti-aging component and the old concept of beauty sleep. But people oftentimes don't know the science behind what does it mean to have antioxidants or oxidation. So oftentimes when we sleep, what's been now studied by a brilliant researcher, Dr. Walker, profound book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. One of the things they've documented through Harvard, Stanford, Yale, and Johns Hopkins now is there's a cleansing system that happens during our sleep. And there's a word now called the glymphatic system. Instead of lymphatic, it's the glymphatic system, implying that there are actually glial cells and cleanup mechanisms that happen while we sleep. A huge component of sleep also has to do with anti-inflammation. And there's even profound studies that show when people are not rested, they have significant, not only immune deficiency, which is more relevant than ever today, but cardiovascular function failure, as well as weight gain. So needless to say, lack of sleep leads to increased mortality. It's not even theory anymore. It is hardcore data.
I'll tell you what, you gave me goosebumps when you were saying that, because I did have an inflammation issue, and I was probably getting up, I would say, at like a good night, maybe I only got up 5 times. That's before I started this. And this really isn't a commercial. I've really been using this product. See, there's not that many left in this bottle, but I have more. But I used to get up, if I only got up 5 times in a night, that was a good night for me. And I can say I don't really quite sleep fully through the night, but usually it's only maybe once, maybe twice on a bad night. So it is a huge improvement. And, I think that, I definitely know that it's been helping me a lot, more clear-headed. But you brought something else out that we really should talk about, which is the immune system. There are so many diseases around, and even COVID. And as you know, my COO, Jacqueline, has been now out in her 7th week here with COVID. And I work so closely with her. And, we were even in a car together for about 5 or 6 hours one time, like 2 days before she came down with COVID. And yet, thank goodness, I did not get it. Sure. I think it's because of my immune system and sure. how much I have worked on that.
That's wonderful.
What's your thought about all of that?
Sure. So I've been using this analogy with patients recently. Right now, I'm able to talk to you over the internet, and I'm so grateful. Years ago, this would have only been on the Jetsons cartoon, and now we're able to see each other's face. So everybody's so dependent on the internet. We absolutely dependent on technology, on texting, on communication.
Yes.
If there was a sudden threat that everybody's computer would be infected profoundly or tremendously forever, everybody under the sun would do everything possible to get the greatest Norton antivirus, the greatest McAfee, every possible program they can put on their computer that would help ward off any invaders, as well as clean up possibly any current quote unquote malware or infections. People understand that analogy. And then when I say, so why aren't we doing that with health and resilience?
Yes.
We are often thinking from the outside in instead of the inside out. And I encourage people, and I know this is your level of consciousness and how you think in all areas of life. It's about what can you do to absolutely amplify your resiliency, no matter what environment or condition you're exposed to. I grew up, and it wasn't that my dad was not being compassionate, but he used to ask profound questions when we were at grocery stores, and you would see the small can asking for people to donate change. And my dad would say, it's totally fine to support muscular dystrophy or MS or childhood diabetes. But he said we should also be funding research as to why some people have proper function. Instead of only studying dis-ease or malfunction, we should be studying what does proper function or resiliency look like. If you absolutely have the most abundant bank account, it's very obvious that there's wealth. But for some reason, people think health means the absence of disease or symptoms. That's like saying if you're not poor, you're wealthy. Or if you're not, if a husband and wife are not hitting each other with pots and pans, they have the most amazing, loving, intimate, compassionate relationship. And we know that's not true. It could just be neutral. It could be mediocre. It could be so-so. It could be good, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's glowing and beautiful. And for some reason, we've adopted a model of health that says an absence of disease or symptoms means health, and it doesn't mean proper function.
Right.
So I think that's a huge piece to really start planting seeds for people. And now is a huge opportunity to do that because, of course, we have people's attention.
Absolutely. I mean, you've been here to my urban farm. And so
Yeah.
you know that a lot of my focus has been on, superfoods, the jujubes, that this teeny little apple-like fruit gives you 75% of the vitamin C that a normal adult needs in a whole day. So, but not everybody has access to that.
True.
So there are some people that will take like 100 supplements in a day too.
True.
So what's really the best way to feed your body what it needs so that it can function in the most optimal way, supporting everything, not just your immune system, but your brain and all of that?
You got it. So first of all, we like to tell people that, you want to get things that have beautiful enzymatic value. If you found it on a shelf, if you found it in a bag, odds are there's probably not a lot of live enzymes in it. So we just try to gently help people at least start in that direction. I love this analogy my dad uses with patients. And my dad is 83 and he's in practice 53 years, and bless him. And hopefully he'll see this video. He just asks people, is this a withdrawal or a deposit? A lot of times people know what's at least remotely more life enhancing versus not. And you have to start with the goal in mind of at least evaluating, is this a life enhancing choice? No one is forcing people to make bad choices. And at least if they can start learning and leaning towards what does it look like to be making life enhancing choices and the fuel they put in their system, they're going to be doing so much better. Just the commitment and the awareness alone is a huge piece, is a huge, huge start.
Well, it is. Although there are a couple things that I heard in there. One was that nobody forces you to make bad choices, and yet all of the advertising, all of the media, when you look at it, they are absolutely 100% nudging you in that way. Even when they show vegetables, but the little girl won't eat that broccoli unless you douse it in this powdered crap, and then it's just delicious.
Very true.
And it is really interesting because I can tell you I raised my daughters on lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, thanks to my sister, who was a hippie and still probably is. But, she was always saying to me, read the label, read the label, read the label. And when you start reading the label, that is so eye-opening, because all of a sudden you think you're eating bread, for example, but you're eating all of these chemicals.
You got it.
Right? So
you got it.
I do think, and frankly, the government has subsidized a lot of this, the food production, and has really degraded the food production a lot. So I have very strong feelings about that, because I do think, even though it appears like we're making choices, we're not really making those choices.
It's true. I have to say, I am maybe blessed to be in a happy little microcosm where the typically the people that I collaborate with are a few steps ahead. They're already passionate and really seeking out peak performance. Right. But maybe some people that haven't had that exposure, there's obviously a rewiring, a reprogramming that needs to take place. And I just might have an amazing guest to help with that for another talk. I have a brilliant collaborative friend who loves coaching people about what does it look like to nourish themselves. So maybe I'll, no pun intended, plant that seed.
Well, that's a perfect pun. And I think that that's perfect too, because what this site is really all about is building that community. Because so many
Wonderful.
times, people don't have others that are of like mind.
Sure.
And so they don't really know what to do. They don't know where to go for this information.
Sure.
And, I like to share this information because if we can think more clearly, and part of me, even on, the economic side of it, right? If we don't think clearly, then just like the point that you made earlier with the Ambien and, getting 1,000 phone calls because his wife was in the hospital and he had no clue. If you can't think clearly, you can't make good decisions. You can't make educated choices. You don't have the energy to even do the work.
You got it.
Right?
I met with my board yesterday. My company's name is Human Elements, and when we met yesterday, one of the members said, "We want to help people dream so that they can access their dreams."
Oh,
And what he meant by
yes.
that is when people are arrested, they have greater energy and the ability to accomplish what they want to accomplish
Okay.
and think clearly, which is exactly what you're saying. And think about it. Airplane pilots are functioning at less than their ideal capacity. Teachers of our children are functioning at less ideal than their capacity. Bus drivers, people that have profound responsibility, could be fatigued, rested, possibly excessively caffeinated. And I would like to make a dent in that.
Well, maybe I can help you do that too, because that's part of the community building. It's not just this one little piece, it's all of that outreach. And actually, that's why you and I started talking about my issues with sleep anyway, because you've been here, and I do a lot to try and keep my brain functioning optimally and my body as well. And proper sleep also helps with excess carrying of weight. I know that I have an issue because I stressed my adrenals like 20 some years ago.
Sure.
And my feeling is, and that's one of the reasons why I've been doing also a vegan, no added oil diet, with, nothing processed, but I haven't eaten processed foods in a million years. But I feel like along with the sleep, that's going to heal whatever that issue is that nobody can seem to find. Clearly, there's an issue for the way I exercise, the way I eat, and the way I live my life. There's still an issue that's in there. And I'm just hoping that if I do all these right things,
Yeah.
I'll heal that.
Yeah.
And it'll kind of be easy.
I would like to speak to that. First of all,
Please.
So there's two aspects of the nervous system, the gas pedal and the brake. The gas pedal is the sympathetic nervous system, and the brake is called the parasympathetic nervous system. Many years ago, you may have been in an intense fight or flight pattern, and that causes tremendous amount of cortisol, stress hormone, and depletion. And you have worked so hard to get out of that gas pedal mode and really access the brakes. I've watched you do it, and you've done a tremendous job of really renewing yourself. And let's be honest, this is one of many projects that you're doing, and you still have the energy to do it. So
right.
You're doing something right, LZ. I'll tell you that. And, I think a lot of times people say it's happening again. It's doing this. And they don't realize that their body and their mind are connected. Your biography, your life story, and your biology, your physiological story are intertwined. Years ago, that was woo-woo, sort of maybe snuck onto Oprah once in a while. And now more than ever, there's hardcore data that shows people that your physiology and your life story obviously are intertwined. So I think you're a walking example of somebody you've rebuilt your health and your vitality. And I'm glad to see that you're doing creative endeavors too.
Oh, well, you know me, ABC, always be creating. It's kind of the nature of the beast. And I have been, I used to go outside to find those things to calm me down,
Sure.
different places that I would travel to or what have you. And I didn't really realize, but at the same time that I was growing these gardens, I was also growing a place to calm my mind,
Sure.
right? So I'll go out when I'm working intensely and reading all of the garbage from the Federal Reserve and all of that, which will get me really, really worked up, you know. And I'll go out and I'll feed the fish and the ducks for a minute, or go in and pick up the baby chicks and all of it. You know, I mean, when you do that, it just, it's like a switch
It's great.
that, but you know what, I think a lot of people might have trouble turning off, and you kind of mentioned it as an example before, but that's electronics.
You got it.
And you know, and how
You
does that have an impact on
sure.
our health and well-being and our
Sure.
sleep?
So the more exposure we have to blue light, especially late at night, it's literally reversing our sleep chemistry to the point where your adrenals get fatigued. People are firing in a greater level of stress hormone. Their cerebral cortex, their higher brain center, is still activated. They can't access their limbic system, which is the emotional brain. In other words, they're still spinning. They're still revving as though the car is running instead of time to down regulate. A lot of times we coach people to take a really nice soothing shower, to maybe drink a cup of soothing chamomile tea. I know you're a tea person,
Mm-hmm.
or even hot water. um, a lot of times we encourage people to really make sure their room is nice and cool so that they're comfortable and they can rest in the evening. Electronics have become so intertwined and a part of people's body. A lot of times people know where their phone is, possibly more than they even know where their keys are or their glasses. People have such a radar as to where their phone is at all times. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll watch teens, and it's fascinating. I watch teens, and I call this other referenced behavior. They can't have a conversation with each other without showing each other something on the phone in which to have the conversation about. So when we raise our daughter, we really encourage her to leave her phone in her backpack, be present with people, disconnect from the electronics, and actually reconnect back to our natural rhythms. Just like you talked about how your home is a peaceful respite for you. You know, people have become disconnected from their natural rhythms, and
Mm-hmm.
electronics is a drug. It's a way of pulling somebody away from their natural ability to stay in tune and stay connected. That's why I focused on creating our product. That's why I coach people to have greater quality of life, because, you know, there are some core strategies in life that no matter what you do, they are not quick fixes. You obviously are
Right.
brilliant and coaching people that you don't get rich overnight. Nobody raises an amazing child overnight. You would never want a woman to give birth to a beautiful child in 1 month instead of 9. No farmer plants seeds and stands over them and says, why hasn't this grown in a day? And yet there's so many electronic quick fixes, things that are luring people in instead of people really doing the beautiful work and creating a healthy foundation.
Yeah, but you know, this generation, the younger generation, you know, it's one thing for me, and Megan can tell you that when I have drowned my phone, it's taken me like a month or more because I was not in a particular rush to get back. I kind of liked the fact that nobody could get a hold of me, right? And just like, oh, my girls are like, get the phone, get a phone. Okay, fine. But you know, the younger generations, and especially
Yeah,
I watch my grandkids, and I mean, they are always gaming and this thing. And now I took my one of my grandsons out last Saturday, and he, of his own volition, left his electronics home because they
great,
know when they come here, no
great,
electronics. You know, we have lots of fun things to do here. But,
great.
you know, how could maybe a parent create some level of balance? Because you're not really going
Sure,
to keep them away, and it is
sure,
what they have to deal with. But is there a
sure,
way to create balance?
sure. First of all, I think it's important to acknowledge that a lot of times people feel drained and fatigued, and they often will opt to allowing their kids to use technology just as a way to distract them or to get a break. So people are fatigued, and I know it's not easy, and yet the fulfillment and the benefit of seeing your child be able to think and reason clearly and have emotional intelligence, the ability to have a conversation, the ability to answer questions, eventually that could lead to leadership, sales, any possible opportunity in their future. It's a commitment, but I think if parents are willing to put some boundaries around it, a lot of times if they can set a limit and they're really clear about this is the limit that you can and can't do, there are amazing other activities that have been in existence for 50 years
Yes.
that, 100 years, 2,000 years that,
Right.
existed before we had access to, cartoons on YouTube. Kids can learn creativity. Kids can learn arts and crafts. You can expose children to music. They can actually help with chores and help them feel a little more responsible. They can learn how to cook. They can become more physically active. I mean, gosh, the childhood obesity rate that's happening in this country is out of control. So,
Well, that also goes back to the sleep. Has the rise of all of this technology in these young kids and younger kids, has that had an impact on their sleep and therefore, the social interaction and the ability to function well in school and can you speak to that?
100%. Think of what just happened. You asked me a question. I was able to digest it, and now I'm able to answer that to you in real time.
Mhm.
When children are on technology, it's an artificial communication strategy, because when do you ever get 1 minute, 3 minutes, maybe, the ghosting that happens with kids? They don't answer a text for a day, a week, a month. It's giving kids an artificial ability to insulate themselves instead of them
Yeah.
actually giving them a strategy to communicate and learn how to be present and be available and feel good about themselves and in their interaction. I've really seen it affect children's anxiety levels, whether or not they can feel fully rested. And here's a profound one. I ask people all the time in surveys, how quickly do they reach for their phone after they wake up? And immediately people are exposed to challenging news stories or silly other, media offerings within 30 seconds to a minute of them waking up, instead of them remotely connecting to their breath, possibly setting goals, meditating, reading something inspiring,
Mhm.
taking a walk. And that is a rewiring that I am profoundly committed to helping with.
Well, Megan, who's listening to this, brought up a super good point here. And with COVID, the electronics are the only way kids get that social interaction with each other right now. So,
Very true.
how can we combat that? Because we really are, a lot of us, and with the schools not being open, and what are they doing? How are they educating themselves with electronics on the computers and all of that? I mean, wow. Oh, what's the solution for that? That's a really good point,
It's
Megan.
it's a great point, and there's going to have to be a lot of healing, because um, we need warmth, we need connection.
Yeah.
We are human beings for a reason, not just human doings.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have to unwind some of that, and really, hopefully when people, whatever their view is of when things are safe, help kids get reconnected and re-engage with healthy activities. I mean, the beautiful thing is people can connect from all around the world. I'm able to talk to you right now virtually. If you were in Sweden right now, I'd still be able to talk to you. The opportunities
Exactly.
are incredible. Your outreach is international. We know that. But there are costs, without a doubt. Yesterday, I did something creative. I had to have a big meeting, and then I took my daughter to a big workspace. She had a friend join her. They were still, quote unquote, socially distanced, but at least they were studying in the same environment within 6 to 10 feet apart and all that good stuff. But
Right.
at least they were able to joke around a little. When they had breaks, they could laugh. And I know not everybody can do that, but I tried to create some way for her just to have more of an interaction. So it's
Yeah.
hard. You got to be creative in it. And so many parents are overwhelmed right now, for sure.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't know how parents are doing it. I'm certain they appreciate teachers a whole lot more right now. But,
Absolutely.
I think that what's happening with COVID is having an impact. I think it's making our society, well, we're inside of a reset. And it's not
Yep.
just a financial reset, it's also inside of a social reset.
Got it.
And it really makes us coming together that much more important because
For sure.
hey, we are a lot more powerful than that. But we're
100%.
getting close to time, and I really
Yeah.
wanted to talk a little bit more. Can you explain the ingredients? I mean, could kids take this as well?
Sure.
Is there
Okay.
what's in here
So,
that will help that?
okay, great. So first of all, let me talk about the ingredients, and then I'll talk about dosages too.
Okay.
Uh, three key ones that are very rare that we really worked hard. Our product is called the NSF for Sport certified, which means our product got certified at the highest level of purity for Major League Baseball, for the NBA, for the National Hockey League, for the NFL, for Division I sports, even Olympic athletes. So first of all, we paid a tremendous amount and went through a lot of pain and tears and prayers to make sure we pass at the highest level of purity, which also means if we say 100 of X is in the bottle, 99.9999% of what we're guaranteeing is in it is in it. Okay, a few ingredients that we really, really want to highlight. I'm going to hold this up without sounding too advertising because we're super proud. Hopefully you can see this. This is our new classy bottle.
Nice.
Our product is called Refresh. We have a little gold, no pun intended, about gold. We have a gold stripe
It's always
on there.
the gold standard, isn't it? Because
You
that's like
got
the
it, my friend.
very top.
Woo! So sleep is golden, and
Mhm.
we added a little gold to the label. And Refresh, one of the ingredients in Refresh is called valerian. Valerian is an ancient root. A lot of people have heard the word or been familiar with it,
Mhm.
and it's profound for helping people fall asleep, stay asleep. And a huge piece is there's actually an anti-anxiety and antidepressant component to valerian as well. Kava kava is another one of our ingredients that not only has an anti-anxiety component, but also helps with a little bit of oxygenation. So there's actually a cellular renewal component as well. People are very familiar with chamomile, which has often been used to calm the nervous system. Lemon balm is another interesting organically infused ingredient in our product that helps people lessen the time it takes for them to fall asleep because they're able to access that parasympathetic mode, that let down mode. So these are some of the ingredients that we love highlighting. We have a little bit of a poppy in there as well, which is a calming agent. And it's been so much fun. The feedback is incredible. For most people, one capsule 30 minutes before bed is a wellness dose. For people that have a stronger need, I've seen them take up to 2 capsules an hour before bed. And the nice thing is it doesn't get stored in the fatty tissue, so it's totally safe. For children, obviously, we can't put on the bottle that this is a pediatric remedy, but we have seen people clinically actually take half a capsule. So they've actually dumped part of the capsule out and given children half a capsule, and it's really, really helped them. We've done that with our daughter recently, actually, too.
You know
Because
what? I'm gonna have my daughter do that with not Megan, but my other daughter. Her daughter does not sleep. She came into this world and she really, I mean, they can't get her to sleep until like 11, 12. I should show you the picture of her first day of kindergarten. She did not look happy. It was hysterical, but she was not happy. But I know this has helped me a lot. I'm sorry I didn't think about that for Lily, but I'll tell
Thank you.
Whitney.
You're motivating me because eventually we are going to have a pediatric line, not only for sleep, but actually our next product for adults and peak athletes is a mental focus and clarity formula. And we're going to be creating a junior version of that because children so profoundly need greater focus and the ability to focus and stay on task.
You know, I'm thinking maybe some of these can really could they counter the impact of all of the electronics maybe? Balance it, because that's what we got to find. We've got to find balance.
You got it. In our next product, our mental focus and clarity formula, we have kind of access to a proprietary ingredient, a profound chelated magnesium that actually has been proven to shift people who have early onset dementia. And magnesium is profound for cellular healing. So I think it'll be really impactful also for children in terms of helping them feel refreshed and renewed. And that's kind of was our vision. At first, our first 2 products is an AM and a PM model. We started with PM because we really want to help people sleep. And our AM model coming down the line is a mental focus and clarity product during the day too.
Well, I totally want to try that whenever you're ready. And
Soon.
we'll see how that, I love it. I love it. Dr. J, is there anything else that you think that people really need to be aware of, or any other tips that you want to share, or anything that you want to
Sure.
share?
Sure. Well, thank you. First of all, I want to make sure that I just share my gratitude to you. Thank you for getting good, positive energy out into the world. And, um, first of all, I want to encourage people to know that sometimes small steps are profound. There's the old kind of joke, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And sometimes it can be overwhelming. People want to make profound, huge shifts, but it starts with one step at a time. Maybe it's hopefully taking our sleep formula. Maybe it's reviewing a little bit of their exposure to electronics. Maybe it's reviewing what they're putting into their fuel, into their nutrition. I think commitment helps create change. Change ends up creating better commitment. Healthy people make healthier choices. So I want to
It's true.
encourage people. It doesn't have to be an upheaval overnight. It could be small steps. And when you feel successful, you want to do it more and more. You see children get tutoring from a teacher. They feel more successful in the subject. Suddenly, before you know it, that teacher's their favorite teacher. The subject is their favorite subject because they got over the anxiety, the fear, the hesitation, and they took action. More than ever, please don't just use this as entertainment. Hopefully you like my voice and Lynette's voice. I'm grateful, but we want people to take action and little steps. And if I can offer any coaching, if there's any support that we can offer, so we have so many strategies and resources of beautiful people in the community. Arizona is an amazing place for healing. I tell people that on a regular basis, and I believe that's true.
It is, and we have all of the links available for you. So, and they're all on the website, so you can get a hold of Dr. J. You can go in and see more of his work, read the newsletters that they put out. He works alongside his lovely wife, who I've also met with. And Dr. J, I cannot thank you enough for coming today, because really this is all about community, and you've just brought so much to the table in a really important topic. So thank you. And to all of our listeners and all of our viewers out there, just remember: food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Sleep is an important part. This is all about coming together and making the world a better place for everybody. So until next we meet, please be careful out there. Bye-bye.